I just finished reading Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, a former FBI negotiator, and I've got to say, this book completely changed how I think about negotiation. I've always thought that negotiating was all about logic, persuasion, and finding a middle ground, but this book showed me that real negotiation is more about emotions, psychology, and listening than I ever realized. In this video, I will share some of the main lessons I learned from the book. These lessons are applicable in everyday life, and they will come in handy whether you're asking for a raise, negotiating rent, managing a difficult client, or diffusing a conflict with your partner. The first big shift for me was the idea that compromise isn't always the answer. Voss says, never split the difference, because in high-stakes situations like hostage negotiations, you can't just give half the hostages back. In real life, compromising on what actually matters can mean walking away with a bad deal. So, instead of meeting in the middle, the goal is to create real understanding and get to a solution that works, without losing what's important to you. One of the most powerful ideas was tactical empathy. I used to think empathy meant just being nice. But what Voss teaches is that empathy is actually a tool. It's about understanding where the other person is coming from emotionally and using that insight to connect, influence, and guide the conversation. When people feel heard, they stop resisting and start cooperating. That's when things shift. This one surprised me. Your tone of voice is everything. He recommends what he tags the late-night FM DJ voice. That is, a calm, slow, and low voice. It changes the vibe in a conversation. People relax. Tension drops. It makes you sound confident and in control without being aggressive. He also talks about mirroring and labeling. Mirroring is just repeating the last few words the other person says. For instance, if the other person says, "We really need this done by Friday," you can reply with, "By Friday?" It sounds simple, almost too simple, but it keeps the conversation going and makes people open up more. Labeling, on the other hand, is calling out the emotion you think the other person is feeling. Using phrases like, "It sounds like you're frustrated," and "It seems like this is a big deal for you," can make people instantly feel more understood and will help you build trust. Then, there's the accusation audit. The trick is that before you make your case or ask for something, you call out all the negative stuff the other person might be thinking about you. Like, "You probably think I'm just another annoying client." I might sound unreasonable here, but it takes the tension out of the air and immediately disarms people. He also touched on the 7-38-55 rule, which came from a study by psychology professor Albert Mehrabian. He found out that in communication, 7% of a message is the words you say, 38% is your tone of voice, and 55% is body language and facial expressions. In negotiation, how you say something matters more than what you say. And deadlines? They are one of the oldest tricks in the book and are usually fake. Voss says, stay cool. Deadlines often pressure you to rush or accept a bad deal. Don't rush because someone says, "This offer expires today." Use their urgency to your advantage instead. Here's something that flipped my mindset completely. No is not the enemy. People feel more in control when they can say no. So instead of trying to force a yes, try questions that invite a no. Like, instead of, "Do you have a minute?" try, "Is now a bad time?" It sounds small, but the response feels way more relaxed. And people open up more when they feel they can say no first. He also stated that the goal in a negotiation shouldn't be to hear "you're right," but to hear "that's right." "You're right" is often just someone trying to end the conversation politely. But when someone says "that's right," it means they feel completely understood, and you know you're in a good place to move forward. This was another big one for me. Instead of making demands, Voss teaches you to ask calibrated questions. Questions that start with how or what. How can we work this out? What's the biggest challenge here? How would you like to move forward? These are open-ended questions that make the other person think, and they usually start working with you to find a solution. Never Split the Difference taught me that the best negotiators don't argue or push. They ask questions, stay calm, and create trust. And this is not just about getting better deals. It's about improving how we communicate everywhere, at work, at home, and in tough conversations. I will leave you with this powerful quote from the book. "He who has learned to disagree without being disagreeable has discovered the most valuable secret of negotiation." So what's your biggest lesson from this book? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you have found this helpful, Give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more enriching book summaries. Catch you in the next one.